hard.
Oh dear. Is that better?
No.
See, I was a Daniel. My apologies.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So, thank you all for the opportunity to be with you all today. The advisory committee asked to really share characteristics of college students today with you. And so I'm just going to share a few slides with you. Some of these things we've talked about before, but just really wanted to re-emphasize some of the things that we're seeing with our college students. And Aaron, please feel free to jump in at any point in time, because Aaron certainly has some important information too about our students. So knowing that we keep hearing this buzzword about Generation Z, so the students that we have coming to us now are of Generation Z. And so a number of characteristics that are important for us to note as professionals working with these students is knowing and understanding their thought processes. Our students today are very technology driven. If you think about it, and we've talked about this before, our students today have grown up with a cell phone in their hand. They have computers, laptops in their classes in elementary school. And so this is how they have been brought up. This is how they have been taught. This is how they communicate with one another. And so understanding that this is a big piece of their life. And we have had many conversations. I remember at the last January at the faculty meeting, we talked a lot about cell phone usage in classrooms, how to mitigate it, how to manage, things like that. But knowing that they are technology savvy. And so thinking about advising with our students, I think that's really one of the exciting pieces as we talk about Canvas, knowing that our students wanted to be able to use one place where they could get information. And they like to be able to get feedback right away. So they're not used to having to, wait a week to get an answer from someone, or to get a grade, or to get a reply from someone from an email. Their expectation is they are going to get something back immediately. And I know that being able to use software like Canvas has helped tremendously in student success as well as other areas, because the students are getting real-time updates. We know that they're sophisticated on social media. We know that's how they connect with one another. We know that they're not using email addresses to communicate with professors, friends, etc. They're texting, they're using different social media apps. We know that they are more savvy, meaning they are looking at colleges and universities that are going to provide them with the best deal for them. Because as you will see in a few minutes, one of the characteristics of our students is that they are struggling financially. So I have shared some of these statistics before, but a great resource for folks in higher education to use is the Lumina Foundation. They have a number of different resources on how to work with college students. Their foundation is very much centered on providing accessible education to all. And so this is where we're going to find this data. So these are statistics nationwide, straight from the Lumina Foundation. It shares that nearly half of first-year students live out below poverty, making finances a huge concern. I'm sure for many of you in the classroom, you have heard students that have come to you or shared things with you. I can't afford this textbook, or I'm having to work a full-time job and go to class. 47% of college students nationwide are financially independent, and so they're not supported by parents. I'm afraid I don't have the data to share this with you, but we have many students here at Averett that are classified as independent. So whether they are students that come from a foster home, are students that have broken away from their family, there's many different dynamics that our students are now coming to us, and we have seen an increase in that. And so knowing that that means a couple different things. They could be struggling financially, but they also don't have necessarily the support that some of our other students have back at home. 42% of students nationwide live near or below poverty, and 25% of college students nationwide graduate with at least $24,000 in debt. Again, goes back to affordability pieces with our students. Because of those financial pressures and competing obligations today, college students are less likely to finish higher education. And so this shows 38% of students with additional financial work and family obligations, leave school in their first year. Erin can attest to this. When we have students that come to us to withdraw from the university, the number one reason is because of financial. So they either share with us, I can't afford to be here, I'm going to a community college, but those are really the top two that we're seeing. And so knowing that those students are having to make hard decisions to stay in school. A growing number of our today's students are students of color. I think what would be more appropriate would be for Stacey Gato to share with you all the demographics of our incoming class. But anytime you ever get bored and want to review data from the past 10 years, SHEV, which is the Southern Higher Education Center for Virginia, if you go to their website, they have data from every single institution in the state of Virginia in many different ways. So it gives you breakdowns of demographics, of public and private. It talks about financial aid, it talks about retention, graduation rates, really fascinating data, and that is all public. And every year, Averett University has to report that. So if you ever want to look at trends in terms of Averett and how we kind of match up with other institutions, it is an excellent resource. So what does that mean for our students, and certainly how you all work with them and advise them? So knowing that our students are coming to us with a couple of different pieces. So many of our students are first generation college students, which means that they are the first in their family to come to college. Many institutions certainly define it in different ways. I will share with you all that a number of us are working on creating a first generation college student program to be able to show our students that are coming to us as first in the family that there are people like them here, and there are people here who support. So not only are our first gen students coming to us, but ultimately many of our students are coming to us and they're unable to navigate the college experience. So when they come to registration day and they have to go to their advising session, they may appear clueless, right? They don't necessarily understand what gen eds are, why they have to take certain classes and when. When they come to Averett, they're not necessarily the students that are knowing how to ask questions. So if they are in your class and they're struggling with something, our students aren't necessarily going to your office for faculty hours. And so when you think about, hours that you have for your students, you provide for your students or your advising appointments, think about opportunities that you can branch out and meet your students in different ways. I know the Success Center is a great way to meet with students, but I would also volunteer the residence halls. Talk about, if they saw a faculty member in the residence hall, they would just be so excited, I promise you. But what a great way to meet them halfway and to be in a place where they live. So be thinking about ever if you want to schedule a time where you are in the penthouse in Main Hall, or if you are in the Commons Lounge, which is a fantastic space if you've never been in. Those are ways that you can meet students, they can see you, and they can make those connections. Lack of financial literacy. So going back to that affordability issue, our students coming in don't understand what they are borrowing. They don't understand the debt that they are incurring. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand kind of the payment system. And so when they get those payments or they get their financial aid statement, they really struggle with it. They don't understand, why do I owe so much? Why am I paying for this? And so being able, as faculty and staff members here, it's important that, I certainly don't think that we all need to be financial aid counselors, but oftentimes we just need to be able to explain things to students and make a phone call and point them in the right direction. Financial struggles. So again, like I said before, our household incomes have gone down for our incoming students, and tuition has gone up. And so knowing that our students and our families are making very big sacrifices to be here. And so in conversations through advising, students may share with you, I'm really struggling to navigate my schedule because I'm having to work, or I'm having to go home on the weekends to work my part-time job there. And so they may share those things with you, or it may be appropriate for you to prompt and ask that question. Mental health and trauma. So this year, I think you all know that we're happy to bring Jesse Henderson on full-time in the counseling center. We've moved their space. We've also provided a new meditation space through Skylar's office, and they are very busy. Our students are coming to those areas for a wide variety of concerns, whether it's general anxiety, depression, if it's homesickness, we've seen a lot of that recently, a number of different reasons. And I think oftentimes when our students are exhibiting those symptoms, it can be very scary and obviously worrisome to us. I will tell you that the best thing that you all can do is, of course, report. But also, if you are able and you have that student in this space with you, the best thing you can do is offer to walk them over to the counseling center. I think they feel intimidated by going. And so having someone say, hey, I'm gonna walk over with you. I can stay and wait, I can sit in with you. But knowing that they're coming to us with already some of those concerns, you'll see that in your advising appointments. You see that in your classrooms, you report that. And so that is only going to continue. And then finally, one that I'm sure that I don't need to share with you all is the concern of academic preparedness. So concerns with students that are showing signs of not being able to write well, to be able to succeed in math. A number of different pieces that are impeding their ability to pass courses, to retain, and to graduate. And so we, I think, have made some really great strides in many different ways in how we offer courses, but also some services that Erin and her team have offered in the Student Success Center. And so these are some just kind of broad things that we are seeing in student affairs. I know that you all are seeing. And these are barriers for success for our students. These are barriers for them to retain. And so these are very good questions and conversation starters when you are working with your students through the advising appointment. And then finally, I just wanted to share with you all, the top 10 trends right now that are occurring with higher education today across the country. A lot of this is not surprising. So college finances, mental health, non-traditional learners, So those online programs, our GPS program, things like that. Student success, how are we helping our students to achieve? Affordability, career development, workforce development, expanding employment opportunities, documenting learning that the students are experiencing through a portfolio or a transcript, an engaged transcript, and then 5 new data analytics. And so I got this information for the National Association of Student Affairs Professionals in terms of what will the next 5 to 10 years look like. And so I think these are all things that we are already seeing, we will continue to see, and I think are helpful for us to know as we continue to move forward. So that was just a brief snapshot of not really just our students, but just characteristics of students today. I was at having a conversation with some colleagues today at lunch. We were just having some conversation about some of the antics our students have been up to. And they said to you, is this just something that Averett is experiencing? And I shared with them, no, I assure you that many of our colleagues across the board are experiencing this as well. We just see it in different ways. And so again, I think that's where some of the information with college students nationwide gives some feedback and just information when you're working with students. So very brief, but just wanted to share that with you all. And if I can provide any answers to questions, please let me know.
Questions, anybody, concerns, comments? All this information is going to be in Canvas. I'm going to take this presentation, put it under advising. So don't worry about taking notes. Okay? Sahina?
I just wondered, what did the data analytics that you had in the top 10, what did you mean by that? Is
So,
it that they're getting a lot more data and
Yes.
yeah.
Well, you could take it 2 ways. I think in this particular presentation, it was really referencing to getting survey information, collecting information in order to provide programs for students. So how are we taking the information about the type of student we have that come to Averett and placing high impact practices with that?
The next presenter is Adrienne, and she's going to talk about an advising day experience. Some people express, hey, what should it look like? What's going to happen when my advisee comes in front of me? What should I do? I'm passing out a handout that she developed.
It's going to be really hectic and you shouldn't cry. I learned that. What I have really I want to talk through today is a checklist. And in the advising handbook, there's a checklist before advising. And really is geared towards that first advising appointment that you have with a student. And I wanted to do one a little bit more specific to the advising day. We have these days set aside each semester to meet with our students to advise them for the upcoming semester. And so I have a checklist before an advising day appointment, and then another one kind of during an advising day appointment. I haven't been advising that long, about 4 years, but I do know my biggest fear is that I'm going to make a mistake that has a negative impact on the trajectory of a student. I don't ever want to do that. So I rely a lot on checklists. I don't know if others do, but this was helpful for me. So I'm just going to quickly go through this and then share with you one tool that I use that I find really helpful. So my first thing I do is I check PC Self-Serve for the midterm grades, which I've noticed they're not all quite in yet. But in order to evaluate how they're doing in my head, I flag any of the F's, of course, and I also flag the A's. I like to let people know when they're doing a good job, that I recognize they're doing a good job. So I flag those to talk to students about. I review their evaluation, their folder, make sure that I know what they need to take next semester. I try and put that into their hands, but I need to also know that in case they don't know it. I review student information that comes from the registrar's office or even the Office of Student Success in terms of do they have a hold on their account or the business office? Do they have transfer hours that have just recently been applied? Do they have some care reports with issues that need to be talked about during an advising session? And then contacting the students to set up appointments. Everyone does this a little bit differently. I know a lot of people will email their students and say, there's a sign on my door, come sign up. A lot of faculty are using more online tools to have students sign up on an online platform. I do something a little bit more draconian. I just assign them times because it's the day they have off. So hasn't backfired on me yet. We'll see what happens this semester. But they have the day off, so I just assign them a time and say, I'll see you then. And that's if you have, enough students, or you don't have too many students to fit in one day, which I think most people are getting. So contacting the students, you have to figure out the best way that will work for you. Just a reminder here that minimum is 12, maximum is 18, but 15 hours to stay on track to graduate in 4 years. Always have to keep that in mind, especially when a lot of our freshmen start out with 14 hours that first semester. Keep that in mind. I note that as I'm looking at their credit hours, I see 29 instead of 30, or so they're getting close. So if I get their folders out, I get them in order, I get ready, I get organized for the actual advising day. I've done all of my prep work so that I can spend more time in my appointment actually talking and paying attention and listening and hearing the student more so than fumbling through folders trying to find paperwork and look on the computer. I will actually print out their midterm grades, and I use that as my base sheet of paper. I jot my notes about what classes I need on that, and that's what I go into the advising session with. So I've got everything right there in front of me. Of course, inquire about how classes are going once you get into the appointment. Be specific, refer to midterm grades. I learned the first semester that saying, oh, well, I noticed you have an F in stats. How's that going? It could be better, but I think I can pull it up. And then moving on isn't always effective because then they end up failing stats. And I didn't have a meaningful conversation with them. So like talking to them about, do you need tutoring? How do you access tutoring? How can we get you hooked up with that? And making sure they have all the right resources. I require my students to come with a tentative schedule. They don't all do it, but I require them to. And so then I will sit down and review that schedule with them. What classes have you looked at? What do you want to take? What do you think you need? Make sure that it meshes with my notes, and then we create a schedule together. Because this is before they're actually able to register, there's no getting on PC to do. I technically guess they could put some stuff in their carts, but we don't get on PC self-serve. Instead, what I do is make sure that they leave my office with something in their hand. So on the flip side of your handout is what I do, which I give every single student who leaves my office. It has my name and my email at the top, of course, just in case they forget. But it also gives them the dates that they can register. I highlight that for each student so that they can see which time is theirs. I have a couple of reminders for them that tends to be an issue sometimes. I say, please remember to put your courses in your cart. You're able to do this prior to registration. I remind them that they must hit submit because a lot of times I get those emails, I register, but it's not showing up. What's happening? Well, they didn't hit submit. I tell them they didn't actually buy the course. And then finally, if you have any questions, to email me sooner than later so we can get things taken care of. But then I jot their schedule down. I take a pencil or pen and I put, this is what they leave with. So when they go to PC self-serve, they can, when they register, they pull this out, they look at it, their course section, and they can get that into their cart for registration. Some of my students have indicated that it's nice to have that in their hand to take with them. I know a lot of our students do everything on their phones, but at this point, since they're not actually able to register yet, they're not doing it on their phones. And so I find this is helpful. It's a little bit different when registration is open and they come to my office. We can do it right then and there on the computer or on the phone. Back to the other side of the page, one thing that I make sure the students know with the date and time that they're able to register for classes. It's on that sheet. I also authorize students to register for classes. I learned the hard way that I don't authorize them and then they can't register, and that's my fault, not theirs, and I hate it when that happens. But I use this checklist because if I don't, then I don't remember to authorize them. And then I always make sure that I ask if they have any questions for me, because a lot of times they're not going to ask it unless I throw that out there. I know it seems so simple, but they just feel like time's up, time to go. But if you ask if they have questions, a lot of times they will have some for you. So that was my quick, going through what to do before an advising day appointment, during an advising day appointment. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yeah,
Do you authorize all your students, like, when seniors, I know, October 28, 29, do you, seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen, do you authorize everybody at one time?
well, I do authorize them on the advising day. Usually, everyone that I meet with, I will authorize all at the same
So
time.
you don't do your whole advising section?
It depends, I mean, if they haven't met with me yet, right off the bat, I'm not going to, but, at some point, of course, I will, but I would like to meet with them in advance.
Okay.
Yeah. and-
I like to authorize all my students at once.
I do too.
Everyone
And
needs
that's
a
a
little
personal
bit.
preference,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with what she's doing, but I authorize all at once, I won't forget.
I know, that's what I do, I'm afraid I will.
And because they can't actually take the classes until I approve them,
Right.
and that's the reason why I do it. However you do, it, whatever works for you, there's no perfect system, okay, what works for you and the students.
And I just want to make a statement, I think this is the most wonderful thing I've ever seen. More of our faculty need to use it, and I was going to suggest that we should put this in the advising committee.
Some of it was pulled from the advising manual, yeah. I just kind of changed it up so it was for like advising day and not necessarily for,
But from my perspective, what's on the back is great, because if there is an issue and they have to come to our office, then it's written down
Yeah,
in some format that I can read,
right.
so.
Right, and you know,
Right.
I used to just give them the registration forms, but I wanted to have that extra information on there about when they can register, and I just thought I have a document in my
Yeah,
computer.
I think that's
I
great,
updated
because
it
a lot of
with
times
some-
they forget, and they'll be, you know, the freshmen who are trying to register, and seniors are supposed to, and they go, hit the blue.
Right,
You're
and
on
I
the
have to
wrong.
field those emails too,
Yeah,
like,
so,
can I register? Well,
yeah.
because you're a freshman, and it's not, I mean.
Exactly, but no, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, did you have a question?
I was gonna ask how long does this normally take you, these little bullets?
There's never enough time, and that's my biggest problem, but half an hour would be perfect. Sometimes I'm pushing them into, 20-minute slots to try and get them all in. And I play back and forth with that a little bit. 20 minutes doesn't seem to be enough, half an hour seems to be perfectly fine, so.
Okay.
And some are so much, I mean, some of those students come into my office, the schedule they need, it's perfect, they know what they're doing, they're in and out of there in 10 minutes, everything's great. Some students could linger for 45 minutes.
It's something else that I do, which is these little tips, and I think a lot of us probably do this. As soon as I get them as an advisee, I try to schedule out as far as I can. For instance, in accounting, there's courses offered every other semester. So I lay those out and then we fill it in. And that makes it a whole lot easier on that 20 minutes or 30 minutes you're talking about. So that I can say, look, this is what, and I make them take it with them too. And I really like what you've done here too. Particularly that back session. I'll give it to them a piece of paper and they'll lose it.
And my, something that happens with me often is in our degree program, they have to take a lot of electives, and not necessarily in our department, but just electives in general.
Mhm.
And I'm not gonna sit in my office and waste 20 minutes looking up everything on the computer to see what they might be interested in taking. I write on the bottom of this sheet, I write, you need 2 more electives, find them, and I will approve them. But they have to learn how to use PC self-serve, and they have to be able to browse the catalog. I'm not gonna sit there and browse it for them and say, oh, would you like to take Russian history? No, that doesn't sound good. Okay, would you like to take art? No, that doesn't, because that's not something I can do. I try. It drives me crazy. Any other questions?
Or best practices that you use.
We, in the nursing department, we have our whole 4 years plan of study.
Right.
And we check off each semester the classes they are, and we give them a copy of that so they know where they are and what classes they have left in the whole degree.
This is gonna sound crazy, but I think one of the best practices for all of us is to know your curriculum. Know your curriculum and know rotation. If I know this class is taught here, and it's a prerequisite for this class second semester, that's crucial for help our students. It's that knowing your own department. Now, the tough part here is, I know, like, I see Zach, and I use a lot of his classes for us. I use a lot of other people's classes for us, business, for sport management. That's the tough part. But we're small enough and we communicate well with each other. just no curriculum.
But you put something together one time that was really helpful where you had the departments to put the rotations together. And I can't, Susan Huckstep did that for me
Yeah.
for communications because we try to push a lot in communications. And that was really, really good to see the rotations of the courses.
We're hoping that this spring, for next fall and spring, there'll be a full year's of courses that will be offered for a full year, and that will help tremendously. So we'll see how that works. When we did the rotation for a few departments, we got like a handful. Everyone didn't contribute, and I understand that. So we're going by a year now. So this coming spring, we hope to get all the departments to say, okay, this is what's gonna happen next year, next school year, for fall and spring. That's gonna alleviate a lot of problems, I feel. Jackie?
Yeah, one of the things that I do, we get a lot of undecideds. I don't know if
Yes.
people do that. But, you know, if they say, you know, I'm interested in, you know, sociology, I'll say, you need to go and talk to someone, not that I want them to do the work, but I say, you need to go talk to Adrian, or you need to go talk to computer science, you know, go talk to Sergey and see which classes he would like for you to take next semester,
Right.
so that they actually, when they come to me, they have some idea. Or if not, I have to call Sergey and say, you know, what is it that you need them to take for the next semester? So it takes a lot longer. What's that?
I've had a few of your advisees come and ask me, and it's always
Yeah.
great to sit
Yeah, I
down.
just go talk to them and see if there's something that, you know, because, you know, you might want to take the minor, you might want to do whatever, so, you know, I just like to send them to meet the people, because we're so small, it's easy to do that.
Okay. Anybody else, best practices or suggestions? Okay, I know you have no commitment, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, next, folks, are questions. Questions you can ask your advisees. One of the issues that came up in the survey was, my advisor does not know me. My advisor doesn't know me. So what's the best way to get to know your advisees? Ask them questions. Ask them pertinent questions for them. Are you a morning person? Do you work? Are you an athlete? Okay. Do you have any hobbies? What's your major? What are your dreams? What do you want to accomplish? Now, from Leslie's presentation, we're going to be more than just advisors, folks. Think about it. Think about what she presented to us. We're going to have to be mentors. We're going to have to be coaches in many different ways. So get to know your advisees as much as possible, and do that through questions. One of the ways that you can possibly do it, and I know this is time consuming, but it's going to help you in the long run, throughout the semester, send a short email to your advisees. Tell them about important dates. Today I sent out information about October 24th, Advising Day, but I also include information about homecoming. That'll catch their eye. Important dates, important events, new programs, anything that's going to catch their interest. But talk to them and keep constant communication with them. They're not going to always respond. They're not going to always talk to you. But that relationship building is huge. So when they come to your office, you're going to learn more about them. They're going to learn more about you, and they're going to succeed. Because advising leads to retention. Retention leads to graduation. Plain and simple. Okay? Emma? I asked Emma to come talk about international students. Any observations, concerns, or insights? You want me here?
I go in the front. So for everybody that I see a few new faces in the room, my name is Emma Olsen. I do work in the athletics department. I am an ABRA alumni. I'm originally from Sweden. And this is the third year I'm teaching the international section of ABRA 101. So while I'm not your legal part of the international students, Janet is a great resource for those questions, or Tammy Jackson. She is the administrative assistant for our Dean of Students. I do get a lot of questions from our international students, and I do get a lot of questions from advisors about how to advise international students. So some of the common questions I kind of wrote down. You do have a great section in the advice manual.
Yes.
Right, it's in there. About international students, so please look over that. If you have an international student, how many has international students that they're advising them? So if you, we currently have, correct me if I'm wrong, but about 60 international students on campus. So they're all different. They're coming from different areas, they're coming from different countries, so it's hard to put international students in a box. We can't say these are how international students are working because their universities back home, their high schools from back home, their cultures are different. I would say treat them as a first-generation student. They have no clue what's going on with general education courses or how the majors are happening. They don't even, the concept of coming into class and have actually mandatory attendance policies for them is out of this world. Like, they are used to universities back home a lot of times where they can choose if they show up for class or not. They just need to pass their test. So get to know them, like Coach said, ask a lot of questions. How does it work at home? A lot of times that makes them feel a lot better. A few things that's important to remember: they have to be enrolled in at least 12 hours legally. Correct?
Yes, and at least 9 out of that 12 have to be in the classroom.
Correct. So they cannot go all online in one semester. If you have any question about that, again, Jenna is your best resource for those type of questions. International students cannot work off campus. That is included paid internships. So that's probably more important to know as they're getting older and getting up to kind of junior and senior class. But if you do have any questions about that, there are ways we can kind of get around that with CPT and eventually OBT, but that's also Janet Tammy Jackson type of questions. They can work on campus, however. So if they are struggling financially, they're coming to you, they're talking about it, send them to Angie at the CCCC, and they can get a part-time work on campus, restricted to 20 hours, but it's the best we can do. And we do have internationals that are working in CAP, that are working in admissions, and those type of positions. When you handle incoming freshmen international students, talk to them and ask them about their English abilities. Again, you have everything on the spectrum. You will have international students that are coming in that have a really hard time even talking to you, and you will have other international students coming in that's from England or Australia and have no problems with English language whatsoever. I'm from Sweden. I struggled a lot. Now, I struggled with talking, and I still struggle talking. I get Swedish sometimes. But I struggled not so much to understand, but I struggled to talk. So a lot of times people simplified a whole lot more than they maybe had to, because I did understand what they were saying. I just couldn't make myself understood, if that makes sense. So again, get to know them. They're all different. They're coming in from different backgrounds. As you're talking to juniors and seniors, and I get that question all the time, actually even from freshmen these days, how do I transfer my degree back home? And again, it's not a simple answer to that. They do have to contact the university. The best thing I tell them is to contact the university back home, see how they transfer their degree back home, what they can do with the degree back home. They can also reach out to the alumni office. They can get in contact with any of our alumni from their home countries. That's usually the best resource for them to actually figure out what can they do with the degrees that they get here at A-Grade. Any questions? Yes?
When they transfer back home, does it have to go through that same process for instance, when they transfer credits in, it has to go through what is EASE?
It goes through
West.
No, what she's talking about, I think, you're talking about after they graduate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they want to go to graduate school back in
No,
Sweden or
it's
wherever?
not the same thing, but we get requests very often if they're going on into something else for apostille. So,
Yeah,
that's
so
maybe part of it.
that-
And then we do enrollment verifications for them, and every country requires something different.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is very different. Now, when I was ready to yes, I was going to go home after I graduated here. I ended up staying. I've been here for a long time. But I did contact 2 universities about my sports medicine degree, and they got back with me with 2 different answers. One university said, you can transfer these home, you need to add 2 more undergrad credits, and then you can go and do your master's. And another one said, you can come in, we're going to transfer all of them in, and then you can go ahead and do your master's. So it all depends, just like kind of here, it depends on where your credits are coming from.
Right.
It's going to depend on the country, but then also the university in the country. So, any other questions? All right. Thank
he was from Spain. And he's much more comfortable and understanding English much better now. But he was calling home to Spain every night, talking to his father to translate his assignments and everything.
So, yeah, but he's better. And
He's great
He made
now.
it through.
Yes.
And I would say that a lot of times you will have nationals coming in that are very shy to speak because they're afraid to say the wrong things or the wrong words or whatever it might be. Just kind of make them comfortable and allow them to make those mistakes, especially when they're speaking casual with you, because the English language will come to them. They just need to kind of go through the first, sometimes the second semester. Now, I graduated with seniors that by their senior year still couldn't quite speak the way we wanted, but they could write, and they could understand, and they could do all the assignments in the classroom. You could just definitely tell that they were from Sweden or Finland or whatever it might be. But definitely your English language will get so much better the more you hear, and it goes quickly by the semester year. Yes.
Yeah, we had a math major who was an international student, and she was very bright, and she had some of this stuff before, so she could do the math really well. So we thought she understood everything that was going on, and about a month into the semester, we realized she couldn't understand us as fast as we were talking, and she was just kind of, so we had to work with it, she's great by the time. You're not second semester.
I'll say this to Emma because I taught Emma. She was a little shy, but I was always needling her before and after class, asking her questions about stuff too. So she was talking to me, even if she wasn't talking in class at the beginning, so.
No, absolutely, and I wasn't talking the first 6 months I was here.
Because I kept asking her, because I was trying to make sure she understood what we were talking about, and she was so quiet at first.
And then the day I did start talking, I didn't stop, so.
She hasn't stopped.
Except on the soccer field.
Especially on the soccer field. Thank you.
Thank you, Em.
All right, I think Chris is handing out some things, and I just pulled these right off the website, just so you have something to look at. She asked me to speak about FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And as that affects you all, it seems to be getting this way sort of more and more with advisees now. I understand that some of you have parents who come into advising meetings as an advisor, but probably something we're not real crazy about. And I've had parents in my office when I was advising students, and then I've not had them in. I prefer to have the students just by themselves, but I know sometimes, especially that very first go-round, especially if they're local, a lot of the parents will come in. And so this is just for you to sort of know what you can or can't say, but especially to address some of the issues about the parents calling you and asking questions, even both as a professor and as the advisor. Students have to fill out the FERPA form for us. We have it for financial aid so that they know they can speak to the student about their own accounts with the parents' information, or so that if they're an independent student, if they're married, can financial aid speak to the husband or wife? You have to give permission. The same thing for us. Now, there are things called directory information that we are allowed to give out. Now, we had a little wrinkle in that this past year because the state had this HB1 thing, and so they, there were some things they didn't want us to do. But those were things, luckily, that we didn't pretty much do to begin with. So, if we have somebody call our office who wants to know if so-and-so is enrolled, we can give them that information. That's directory information. If they want to know if somebody graduated, we can give them that information. Technically, before the state got into it, we could, along with directory information, there was addresses, email addresses. The entire time I've been in the registrar's office, we've never done that because I think that's dangerous. So, and we're not required to do it. It was just we could have, but we never did it. I just don't think we should do that. The big thing is once the student is 18 in here, the law says that if they are a dependent, if it's your mom and dad you're, you know, living at home, you're on their taxes, whatever, you're their dependent, then they have a right to find out your grades, right? That makes sense to most of us. Technically, they're paying the bill, right? And most of the students here, almost all of them who are in that position, when they come and they sign the purple form, they give mom and dad permission. And with the handout, you will see on that last page, I put the form that they actually fill out, right? Where they give them permission and say who it is. But we get into more complicated areas now because we have students who are independent. Like Leslie said, they've either been through maybe the foster care system or they've become emancipated in one way or the other and they're no longer with their parents. But still, you might have a parent call about one of them. And we can't talk to those people because if their student did not give us the right to do that, or we've had a couple of issues this time where a godparent was trying to find out information and was not listed on the purple form. So that was not somebody we could talk to unless the student gave us permission to do that. Grades are something we do not give out unless the parent is on the purple form for the student. So the student, once they're 18, sort of gets to pick and choose who can or cannot find out about them. Now, having said that, if they are a dependent of that parent, but the student still said, I don't want you to see my grades, I'm sorry. If they're the dependent, we have to give them that. Okay.
We have to, if they're dependent.
If they're the dependent, but you have to know that they are on here. You would have to go through Carl, actually, to find out if they were the dependent. We don't usually run into that, because most of the time the student will have filled this out. Leslie and them, we do a good job of this, I think, at orientation. We really talk to them and say, and even to the parents and say, if you want to know what's going on, you better make sure your student has put you down. So we really cover that with it. There is a form where a student can say that they don't want anybody to have access to their stuff. I don't give out copies of that. They actually have to see me to do that because that has such huge ramifications. If they do that, that's literally, we had one who did it a number of years ago, and then it was like they had left. They hadn't graduated, but they had left, and they were trying to rent an apartment, and it was like, under some sort of state thing, and they called us and wanted to know, was it a student there, and we have to say, we have no knowledge of this student, or we cannot confirm, or something to that effect. It has huge ramifications. Or if you graduated and an employer called and you signed something like that, we don't know, we can't tell you if they ever were here or if they ever graduated. So I encourage students not to do that. So, the other thing is, you need, one of the bigger pieces about FERPA that you just need to be careful of as far as in your office is that files should go into locked cabinets that should be, you know, like things you have on your students should be left lying around for other people to see. In your classrooms, you cannot put out like a box of graded papers and tell them to rummage through and find their own. That's a no-no. Cannot post things like on a list like they used to. If you're as old as I am, some of us can remember when that was done in school. They used to put the grades up on the door and everybody could see what everybody made. You cannot do that now. Yes, yes. Oh gosh, all those things that they had back when we were students, you cannot do that sort of thing. So, and I actually came through, this has been a couple of years ago, I came through a hallway here and there was a box with binders that had grades on them in the hallway, and I scooped that up very quickly. No, you cannot do that. The other thing that she asked me to speak about was the guidelines for waitlisting at Power Campus. And that is when you put a student, when they go into PC self-service and put themselves on the wait list, then if Stephanie's class is full and and they're on the wait list, and then somebody decides they're not coming back, or they didn't pass Bio 101, so they can't take anatomy and physiology, so they have to drop, so that gave us an opening there. The wait list will take the first person who's on that wait list and send an automatic email to them to say, you have 24 hours to add this class. And then after that, it will go to the next thing. So, and it will show them then as pending when it's like that. So, yes, sir.
We just want to mention that in your class roll on PC self-service, if you click on the student and you pull up the dossier, it will tell you whether or not they have filled out a FERPA form.
Is that on there now?
Was last
Oh,
time?
I forgot to say that, yes, have you got the stuff in?
Well, I'm gonna talk about that in a second.
Oh, you are,
About to
okay.
happen,
Yeah.
but you can see whether they filled one out, it's just not gonna give you the
It's not gonna tell you
about
who.
who is
Right.
on there.
But
But if
there's
there's a no,
So you
plan.
know totally.
No, no, and I'm glad you said that. There is a plan for you to know that. That was the other thing I meant to say, is that if you don't know, you can call our office, because we have the hard copies in the permanent file. And we will be happy to go and look that up, and we do it all the time. But we're working on a way so that you can access that information without having to have us go pull the file.
And I actually got someone to give me a spreadsheet that would give that information.
Pam, yes, she told me today.
So I have it as well. So I know who is and who isn't.
So she knows, Carl knows, and I, yeah. Yes,
I
ma'am.
understand all about the FERPA, but our problem we've had is like, you could be on the phone, and it says so-and-so's mother, and you say, well, I can't give you any information until I can verify
Right.
that you were on the FERPA. And then they'll get the student and say, tell them you talked to me. I don't know who that person is
No.
on the phone, just because somebody comes up and says, yeah, this is my mom, you tell her whatever you
No.
want.
Yeah.
And you can
I've
just
made
say, I
several
have to see it
people
on
very
the program
angry.
form, and hopefully what she's gonna, they're working on will address that so that you can pull it up more easily. But, yeah, you can just tell them, I know a lot of faculty that will tell them, I'm gonna have to check on that and I will call you back.
Yeah.
And that also gives you some time then to sort of deal with whatever some of the issues might be.
I had a
because
student who never came to
There's usually an issue, right? Look, Stephanie's over there, she's
They
so
don't
funny.
ever call to tell
Yeah.
you what a great job.
Yeah, it's usually involving an issue, yeah.
Yeah, I had a student who never came to an advising appointment without her father. Her
Yeah.
father came every month.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact is, if the parent comes in with the student,
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
and I'm pretty much agreeing that that's all right, but yeah, if people, that's the funny part about people calling, you don't know who that is on the other end.
That's right.
They can say, I'm whoever, but you don't know that, so, yeah. Yes, ma'am? Yes, it is supposed to, Gary's already left, it's supposed to go to the next one on the waiting list there. Now, the other thing I was gonna say is, and I think we were talking about this before. Once you have finished with them and you might be checking like whatever they've registered for or whatever, I would just say be sort of careful with the wait list. I mean, a lot of us, like if the class is full, we might tell them, put yourself on the wait list and then go ask that instructor if I can be added or whatever. A lot of us do that. There might be some classes where we routinely bump the numbers up at different times, so you might know that you're pretty sure you're gonna have 4 more here, so you put those on the wait list. But what we need to sort of, I was gonna say, I guess within reason. And I say that because like at the end of when school gets ready to start, I have to go in and like any classes that have 0, nobody involved in it, so the class gets canceled. But I have to go in and clean things up. And I found this time, like there was one student particularly that caught my eye. They had registered 4 different sections of English below. They registered for the section that they ended up being in. But they didn't want that one. I don't know whether it was the professor or the time or whatever they did. But they had registered, put themselves on the waiting list for 3 other sections. And And so that was still sitting there, because they never took it off, you know. So just, you know,
Just enough too,
Yes.
about the wait list. You said they would be sent an email and given 24 hours to go in or contact you. What do they have to do within the 24 hours?
they have to either go in and, well, it should show it for them so that they can accept it. But if they have any problem with that, you can just call me, because it will show them as pending. Once they come off the wait list and get that
The email?
email,
Okay.
yes, it will show them as pending.
So they'll be, okay.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what I've never been clear on.
Yeah.
And I usually pick up the phone and call.
Yeah, and so like if I pulled up file 101 and say say the cap was 18, and there were 20 people with, you know, it was showing 18 in the class and 2 on the wait list, right?
Mm-hmm.
If one of those people dropped off, so there was only 17 in the classroom, that one that was on the top would then show as pending, and the next one would still be on the wait list.
And they'll just have to go in through PC self-serve and acknowledge.
Yeah, they should,
okay.
yes.
All right. And I have one more question about.
Yes,
FERPA.
ma'am.
I do a lot of, there's a guy that comes from Martinsville to do, background checks on people that have been hired for
Yes,
the
I meet
federal
with them
government.
all the time. FBI, CIA,
How
Secret
much
Service,
are
I
we
get them all.
allowed on FERPA to tell them? I mean, I had one just week before last, and he was asking a lot of questions. It was like 5 years ago, and I couldn't remember. I mean, come on.
If it's
I haven't
one
had
of
to
them where
guess
they
that.
have applied for a job, they should have a release form with them.
So I should be able to see,
You should be able to see the release. When he comes into my office, he shows me the release from
And
when
it's
he
probably
asks.
the same one, I see, because he does almost all of them.
Yeah, he always has a release for me when he comes in to ask
So if
his
he's got the
questions.
release form, then I can answer
can tell him.
what I can
Because if
remember.
they're coming, they usually don't go to faculty that much. Usually they're looking to see, first of all, that they graduated, and if they've applied for that job, they've got the release so that they can get a copy of their transcripts or whatever it was. Or they are, what I get a lot, and sometimes I have to check with Leslie if it was a trad student or if it was a GPS or whatever, they're wanting to know, were they in any trouble while they were here,
Yeah.
those sort of things, you know. But,
I don't go there on that, because I feel like that's for me to tell. He was my advisee, and I had him in classes, so
Yeah.
he was asking certain things I couldn't answer most of.
yeah, but they should have the release, or you don't need to tell them anything, so.
Anybody ask questions? Okay, last
Okay.
presenter.
All right, just to reiterate a little bit about what Janet said about FERPA. Typically, you want to be safe rather than sorry, so you're not going to know if the person's a dependent or if they're the dependent of the person calling, right off the bat. So just feel free to say to them, I'm going to find out if your son or daughter has a FERPA on file, and then I will get back with you. Or I'll have somebody else call them for you. It's just better to be on the safe side, which is why we do need everybody to have access to FERPA. It helps. You could be like, give me 1 second, let me make sure. I've had many angry parents when I say, they're like, I filled out the FERPA when I was there with my student, but the student doesn't turn it in. Then you can say, that's on them. Your son or daughter has not turned in a FERPA. If you want to get on them about that, feel free. So right now, Jan has the information, I have the information, Carl has the information. I have gotten with the people at Advocate, which is the care system, and what we use for our incident reporting. And so we can actually upload the FERPA information into that. And if I give everybody access to just FERPA, you should be able to look up any student who attends here, and you should see if they have a FERPA, who the FERPA contact is, their name, their relationship to the student, and a phone number. Okay? So when that's done, which actually should be within the next couple of weeks, everyone should be able to see who the FERPA contact is. Now, one thing about FERPA is we're going to have to update it every single year, because people can take people off FERPAs, all kinds of stuff. So hopefully we'll be having that information for you easily accessible very soon. Okay? We've been working on that for a while, but we finally have the pretty little template that they want us to use. Now, second thing I'm talking about is care reporting. Right now, that's kind of a frustrating point for me because we worked really hard to make this great system. And I just wanted, this is a little bit of housekeeping and update. Right now, if you're confused about the way that some of the contacts are going on care reporting, it's because that when we had the IT situation, we put up a new firewall which is blocking any emails coming from a system, okay? So right now, we've discovered that none of the emails are coming from the care system at all, which means what is supposed to happen, which is you would submit a care report on your advisee or somebody in your class. I would immediately get a notification that you had filed it, and I would reply to you and say, thanks for submitting that, I'm gonna get right on that. Well, I didn't get any of those, and it took me about 3 days to go, surely people are submitting care reports. What's really interesting though, the coaches are supposed to get immediate access when you file it. Of course, the email wasn't going to them anymore. And when I submit or assign a care report to somebody, they weren't getting the information that it had been assigned to them. So all around, nobody's getting any information, okay? I have been assured that IT, because this is not just for care reporting, it's any of our systems, TargetX, GPSs, many of theirs, we're fixing the issue. When it is working correctly, this is how it should go. Okay, so you would, and by the way, I know a lot of you do submit care reports on your students. Feel free to submit them on your advisees. I mean, that we'll take care of it just like we do with any of your students. Yes, ma'am?
Why would we submit them for our advisees?
Because they might give you information in the advising session which makes you pause.
Okay.
So they may say, oh, I said that, but I'm not going to any of those classes. And you're like, whoa, okay, that's a problem. Or they may give you personal
Okay.
information that you're
One that wants to
a little
drop right
concerned
now.
about. Right.
Now, I hate to do this, but I gotta back you up on FERPA.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, FERPA is privileged information
Mhm.
that only people that need to see it. So when
Yes.
you put every person on there for all of us to see,
Mhm.
who's gonna say they're not taking the wrong person and they're looking up people that they should not be looking at?
Well, it's a national practice that if you work at the institution, you have access to FERPA information. So it's in the little caveat that Janet passed out, but really every university employee who may speak to parents should have access to FERPA.
Well, I'm talking about in general, I'm not even talking about, I don't really, shouldn't have access to see what's going on with somebody else's advising.
You won't.
And what if you found in your
But
classroom?
if you have all these people up there, and what if I pick the wrong, you see what I'm saying? There's all, if you're gonna put all of them on there for everyone to be able to view, if you need to.
They're just gonna be able to see, all they'll see is the form and who is listed as being able to talk to, right?
So they're not gonna see
these are the
anything
people that,
except-
they're not gonna see anything else.
They won't see anything else. They'll just see,
Seeing grades or anything.
Nothing.
like that.
there's actually, you can just click the box that says FERPA, and so if you looked up that student, all you would see is their FERPA person and who they are.
Okay,
That's all you'd see. You wouldn't see
Well,
anything
see,
else.
I'm thinking the whole kit and caboodle and that
No,
stuff.
no,
is
no,
right.
no, no. You wouldn't see anything else.
I don't want that.
You don't want all that.
I mean, I've had a FERPA whole 4-hour class on this where they said we're not even supposed to talk to our own faculty about who we're advising. Because that's a violation of chatting between.
That gets to be a little, I've never heard
I mean,
of that
this was the
necessarily.
FERPA guy from Washington.
If you know like Datatel or any of those big time, Bannerweb, what are those things called, Janet? It like, okay, so everybody can see the FERPA information. They have it there for everyone to see because any parent can call. It's actually more dangerous. They're actually more worried that you might talk to somebody you're not supposed to than they're worried that you'll have the information
I'm not really
about.
worried about the parent thing, I was talking about the FERPA guy said that our advisees or students that we have a concern with, that we write a report on, we should not be going to the next course in that faculty and telling them this child's a problem child.
No,
that's a
no, you
FERPA.
should not be doing that.
No, and
No.
that was something that we would do normal practice, and we talk about, and I'm like, no, don't talk, I don't wanna hear anything.
Which is
about
why, like the care system, for instance, and even though some faculty are like, dang it, I wish I could see the care reports that I submit, which I totally understand, but they have fail-safes in place so that you can't see any information even after you submit it. All that this would tell you is the person who is the FERPA contact for that
That's
student.
good. If I wanna
Nothing
know
else.
anything and go to jail.
Nothing else. It will tell nothing else about the student. Yes, that would be a FERPA violation.
Yeah.
Because you can't even send a mass email to your class that contains any information about a particular grade or student or anything.
Well,
So
that's
you're,
like
yeah,
on
you're,
PC self-service.
yeah.
It tells you to keep the emails private.
Yes.
You know, so that, like,
Yeah.
if you send out one to your class, that student only sees theirs.
Right.
They don't see everybody
Right.
else's email.
So you would see nothing else. That would be all you would see. Who's their FERPA contact? That's all you would see. Nothing else. So, but thank you for clarifying that, because you're right about the sharing of information. So, the care reporting. Once you submit a care report, what happens is I will receive an email saying, when that's working, that you have submitted a care report. Unfortunately, you will not see, for the reasons that we've indicated, you will not see that you submitted a care report. It'll say, thank you for submitting a care report. Really small writing, so if you're not paying attention, you may miss it. But other than that, you will not see the care reports that you submit. The reason is because that is a role and responsibility within the system, and if you don't have that role or responsibility, you can't see the care reports. However, when the emails, right now what I'm doing is going through each care report and trying to get back to as many of you as possible, but the way it should work is I would receive an email, you would receive something back saying, hey, thank you, I've received it, I'm gonna look into it, or if I have information already about the student, I'd say, well, here's what happened, they withdrew, or whatever happened. Then, if it's a deeper issue, I might assign it to somebody, you know, like a success coach, or an athletic coach, or whomever, counseling services sometimes, and then they would handle it. Now, the part that's obviously the most difficult is the wraparound, because sometimes you contact a student, you want them to come in, it's crickets, and they never come back. So we're working on coming back around with our care team and making sure that we're closing the loop on those cases. Now, something that's going to be very interesting to advisors is that we are actually, there's a brand new edition of Advocate called Complete, which we're going to be upgrading to. What it allows is two things that we don't currently have. Number one, I think is the most special, is that it allows you to make student groups and give that student group an advisor, okay? So you can make as many student groups as you want. You can make them by your advisees, if you wanted, a group of your advisees. You can make them per team. You can make let's say that you're a FAM or you're a club leader or whatever, you can have them in groups. And then, if you have a vested interest in that group, then it will be automatically alerted if there's anything you need to know about anyone in your group. So that is going to be a new feature. And so, of course, you'd have to vet what groups are you creating, and are you the person who has the most vested interest in knowing about this? If you do, then we would create the group for you, and then you would have real-time information about what's happening with your advisees or your teammates or whatever the case may be. This is a function I've been asking them for since we got this program, and they're finally adding it. The second thing it will do is do automatic updates. So if somebody drops out of a team or drops a class, because by the way, we're also going to have their schedules on there for, you know. I don't know that everybody will have that function, but many of us will have that function of seeing their schedules as well. So there's a lot of exciting things coming with care reporting that's going to make it easier. We of course have to first fix what's broken, and then we're going to upgrade to this new system, or the new version of the system. And then finally, once all of that has come, we're going to have the student groups, we're going to have the automatic updates, and it's going to become a much smoother process. We can't do anything about the IT issue right now, which is making things difficult. But if you just haven't heard from me and you submitted a care report, as many of you have done, just email me and I'll tell you whether I received it, and I'll tell you if I have any information about it. But I just wanted to give y'all that.
Questions, concerns, comments?
This would be nice, because for advisees, when you go to PC self-serve, it says low attendance. And that low attendance can just be because of the 2 days last week.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay.
unless everybody puts it in the same way.
Gotcha.
So having it in a group, you can see where your advisees had not been attending, right?
You can only see that if people are saying that they're not attending. See, because it has to be, since it's through the Advocate Care system, which I have been, as you know, pushing for people to submit into there when students are not attending classes. If people put anything in the care system about it, then you'll get it. If they don't put anything into the care system about it, it's not attached to PC. So the care system, since it's not attached to PC, somebody would have to put a care report in for you to see that.
Okay.
Questions, anybody else, comments? Great. I know we've gone over an hour, just a couple more things, folks, before we call it a day. October 24th is Advising Day. I see some new faces. Please go to your department chair or someone in your department that's a strong advisor and say, hey, can I sit in on an advising appointment with you? Make sure that the advisee and your department chair agrees, but sit on. And even what I'm going to do is I might go into one of my colleagues and say, hey, can I sit in your appointment? Do you mind? Because you can always get something new and something fresh. So keep that in mind. Financial statement that I handed out to everyone. Now, that's for the general population. There was concern, the magic number was 120 hours. We ran the data on how many classes students took, and I was alarmed at how many students only took 14. It's a lot to going 12. You know, what happens if they go below 12?
They lose their financial aid.
Yeah, they're not.
Wrong.
They gotta pay it off.
Wrong.
Prorated.
Wrong. Read the statement. If it's after the drop add date, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's still okay. Read the statement. And if they're a senior, there's special stipulations. Now, if they are an athlete, here's the caveat that I spoke
Of
about.
course.
If they are an athlete, they've got to maintain 12 semester hours throughout the year. They must maintain 12 semester hours throughout the year. That's the caveat.
Can I add one more thing? Also,
Sure.
if they're residential, it's a case-by-case basis if they let them stay in the residential.
And if they're international, they have to be full-time.
Okay.
Just FYI, because we have that instance listed.
Last.
So you should always try to give them 15 hours.
Oh, at least.
Yeah.
19 hours, you have to pay extra. But it's
Which is
gotta
very
be.
expensive.
Yeah, it gets
That
expensive.
is so weird.
What?
It's common.
That it's
just
over 19 hours, they have to pay.
Over
extra.
18.
Over 18 have
It's
to.
My
every
husband, he just got his over 18 free at the community college because he went over 18.
It's common for
And you
most
have to
colleges
get
to
permission here
charge
because
that.
most
It
of
just
them
depends
are
on,
not.
some are more expensive than others. Because I've been through that, I've done research on that.
If you have questions, concerns, or something comes up that say, hey, the advising committee needs to address this, please contact the person, me or anybody that spoke today and address your issues. But don't hesitate to contact us. And we just covered this, we skimmed today. We can go in for hours on advising. Keep in mind, the advising manual is in Canvas now. Everyone has access. The coaches have access, everyone has access to that. The information today will be in Canvas. Plan to put it up there. As soon as I get it, I'm gonna put it up there. Last thing, as soon as Pam McCurdy puts up the Gen Eds, I'm gonna put it in Canvas. The new classes that are gonna be offered this spring, as soon as I get the list, I'm gonna put it in Canvas. Okay? So use Canvas, folks, you have access to it.
Somebody,
And I would say for the new people, like Zach and Shannon's still fairly new, he's a student here. As the others know, I'm in my office pretty much nonstop during registration.
But don't hesitate to contact your department chairs. A
no,
lot of them have been here longer than dirt.
somebody else said that they hadn't put their grades in yet either. You know, we can't put them in our midterms if we didn't get them in by Monday.
I can put them in. Teresa Beach sent me hers today. The
I know.
cutoff was midnight on Monday, and so for those who didn't.
I didn't see that on any of the calendars. I looked.
It said they
It
were
was
due
discussed in the
by
faculty
October
meeting.
the 14th or whatever, so.
Real quick, Kush, on
Yes.
the seniors, everybody that has a senior, that last semester, you need to make sure you try to get 12 credit hours they have got to have. In
Well-
order for it to not affect their financial aid.
No,
No,
it's the last semester, it's not that. The
It's-
last semester can be prorated if they don't need 12 credits to get 12.
That's what I try to avoid.
Yeah,
I try to make sure I work around so they have 12 hours, so
Gotcha.
they're
Oh, I
not
see what you're saying.
prorated.
Gotcha.
Because I got
Yes.
caught in that when that rule changed about 4 years ago. So I always try to make sure they've got 12 hours they have
Yeah.
got to have. I'll figure something out and stick a course in it a semester
Yes.
4, so that they've got
Yeah,
12 on
financial
that
aid
last.
is not gonna let
Otherwise,
pay
you got
something
problem.
you don't need.
You know, they're prorated, and if they're not prepared for that proration, they may have to pull something out of their pockets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, folks, really appreciate it. I feel like we've batted 1,000 today. Last advising session we had 1. So this is great. Contact us with any questions. Have a great day. Have a great end of the semester. Peggy, let me see you for a
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.